Thanks so much for coming on. How you doing today?
It's turned out to be a busy day. I thought it'd be a little less busy, but good day, good progress on all fronts.
You're out in LA?
Yes, West LA.
We're just going through our third snow this week here in New York.
Oh, that's that white stuff that falls from the sky?
Yep. Send you some if you want.
Oh, that's okay. They should probably fix that. I mean, really.
Yeah, right. When I first found you online, I saw the title Space Architect. That is so Da Vinci, that just absolutely blew my mind. I said, I have to talk to this guy. And being an explorer myself, always just finding the answers to questions or looking for more and looking around the next corner. And typically when I talk, I like to have, just the regular kind of BS conversations, but every 10 minutes I come up with a new question. It's absolutely incredible what you do. I read a quote. You said that ideas take you to amazing places. Right. To me, that's so Da Vinci. And obviously that's really the way that you led your life. From what I've read, you were born and raised in LA.
Yeah.
Your father worked for a paper company, and then you were an artist or a sketcher or a drawer. And I mean, is that kind of a perfect match there? Was that really where it all began? Or?
Yeah, pretty much so. My father worked at a paper plant and he was their chief cutter, ran those big machines. So we always had paper and little extra pads around. So I would draw and stuff like that. And so I've always been a designer and I've always been interested in space and science. And I was 13 when Apollo 11 landed on the moon. So I was very impressionable at that time. And you had the Star Trek TV series on in 2001 and stuff. And I got to know and work with Buzz Aldrin for almost 30 years. We're still pretty close friends. He's having some health issues now, but and Buzz is a good designer too.
I cross paths with Buzz whenever there's any large events or anything. We'll cross paths a bit, but I've never had the chance to sit down and talk to him. But I've heard he's a fantastic designer.
He really is, and he's always been trying to provoke big picture ideas. Cycling using gravitational forces between Earth and Mars, for example, all kinds of other odds and ends. And they say ideas take you places. Jim Cameron's a friend. He wanted to do a Mars movie in 2001 and 2. So I linked him up with Buzz, and three of us spent quite a bit of time working on some Mars mission planning and spaceship design. It turns out Jim put that away for a while. This Avatar and other stuff got in the way, Titanic.
Sure.
If you ever saw the movie Avatar, the spaceship that takes the marine character from Earth to Pandora, that was our spaceship we designed. It was supposed to be a Mars.
I literally watched Avatar about 2 weeks ago. My wife's originally from the Amazon rainforest.
Oh, wow.
So, and bring her up to New York. One of the beauties is showing her staple movies that here in the United States we would all seen and watched already.
Right.
Matter of fact, last night I just showed her Rambo and in the Rocky series, but we watched and Star Wars is coming up next. She hasn't seen Star Wars
next. All right.
But oh my God, she fell in love with Avatar.
They worked very hard to develop the biology and the creatures and the language, and they use a lot of science groups to help them do that. In fact, one group is called the Science and Entertainment Exchange. You should be a member of that.
I have to look into that.
Yeah. So Science and Entertainment Exchange is a small division of the National Academy of Sciences. And I've been involved with them for over 10 years. And what the exchange does is connects experts in different fields, engineering, space architecture, biology, anthropology, with television and filmmakers, producers, directors, writers, production designers, with the goal of uplifting the accuracy and quality of the science in media projects. They're also based here in the West Los Angeles area. Real nice people. Yeah, I can definitely I'll make a note to connect you up with them.
Please do. Now, speaking of which, being in LA, how was that for your business? Aside from entertainment, but scientifically, the Los Angeles area is, in my opinion, really on the cutting edge. Was that big for you of being actually born and raised in the Los Angeles area?
Oh, yeah. So I have this fun thing I say that since I'm involved in long-term strategic planning, that I actually made arrangements to be born here to save the moving costs. This is the city to do what I do. So we had the aerospace space community. I mean, half an hour from here is SpaceX headquarters, for example. California Science Center. We got X Prize Foundation, our own Space Tourism Society, USC, UCLA, Caltech. JPL is an hour and a half drive from here.
You're right in the middle of it then.
Yeah. And people around here are pretty open to ideas, meaning the finance guys, accounting guys, legal guys.
Mhm.
Part of the LA industrial base is ideas. It's
Mhm.
IP. So a
Now,
lot of stuff starts here.
now, when you first started as an architect, was there a time that then you finally made that transition to say, okay, well, from architecture, because I mean, like Richard Buckminster Fuller was pretty big in your life, correct? As an influence, as a
Absolutely.
futurist environmentalist.
Yeah. His whole perception of spaceship Earth. I mean, we're on a big spaceship, if you think about it. Happens to
Sure.
be a planet, but we're hurtling through space, orbiting a star.
Hmm.
And so we're all crew members on Spaceship Earth. That was his philosophy and idea, that we should use our resources for the betterment of all people.
Hmm.
And that, to me, as a design guy, was a transitional experience. And I did 4 years of architecture at USC, School of Architecture, and I transferred to a brand new school back then in 1978 called SCIAR, Southern California Institute of Architecture. And the dean of the school, who later on became a good friend and business partner with me,
Hmm.
wanted to start a design studio to design a space colony. My first day at SCIAR, first event, first meeting, and a guy wants to design a space colony. You go, what the hell is a space colony? But that was, for me, another one of those things where it all came together. I could be an outer space architect, and that was 78.
Right.
So I never looked back. Totally ruined my life. I mean, really, I could have designed condos or whatever. But
How did your peers, not your scientific peers, but the general public per se, respond to that? I know now, of course, this is what we're doing. This is the future. But in 78, was that the mindset? Or was it like, this ain't going to happen?
not only is ain't going to happen, go away and don't talk to me.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Well, the space shuttle didn't fly until 1981.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there was only two other guys that I knew of who were architects looking into outer space architecture at the time. So it was really just three of us. And for a long time, it was just a very few, like a handful of 4 or 5 people with genuine architectural backgrounds looking into how to use those skills and background for outer space design, interiors of spaceships, real moon bases, Mars mission planning. And I just kept at it. But in parallel, which is where I made money, was designing space future themed entertainment projects, real estate projects. But yeah, so I've had a parallel career doing the real space design and Earth-based entertainment design and consulting on movies and TV and all that kind of stuff. And they've actually paralleled very nicely. And I liken it to Walt Disney. You know, he designed themed entertainment, movies and stuff, but also was a key player. Really, it's a whole great story of convincing President Kennedy to do the moon speech. And that's just one of this mergers of entertainment and real space together that was pivotal for the future of mankind. Because he had hired Werner von Braun, who was a rocket scientist from Germany, and another rocket scientist to help put together a TV series called Man in Space, which was, you know, like the 50s or so, of how people could actually have rockets and actually go beyond the atmosphere and go to the moon and eventually Mars and all that. They actually did these gorgeous storyboards, like about this big, you know, and of the TV series. And they actually, Walt Disney brought this to Kennedy in the Oval Office and showed, here's how this could all happen. So it's all credible, and gave him the confidence to actually do the moon speech.
That's incredible.
That's an incredible story. Here's entertainment inspiring real stuff. And then, of course, real stuff inspires entertainment. So again, it's all this kind of crisscrossing. And my first project, still created when I was finishing my master's in architecture, called Space Resort, that eventually became Space World, that we got to build in Japan for $200 million.
Oh my God! Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Is there a Mars World?
Mars World is our current project that I created, designed, and we've been working on for several years. We're in the heart. So even at 5 o'clock, we're having a call with our key guys in China. So we're in the heart of deal making. And here's what's fascinating: is you can design a deal the same way you design a house, design a spaceship, or whatever. It's all that deductive reasoning, creative process, establishing an end goal and working towards it. And I do a lot of work with investment bankers. And I've had as many great brainstorming sessions with those guys designing a deal, designing the financing of the deal,
Right.
as I have designing almost anything else.
That's the secret. I'm working on a TV series now with Dr. Drew Pinsky. The main thing now is the funding, and that's a whole other beast in itself.
Well, I've gone to Netflix. I mean, they're giving out money for just ideas. I mean, because they're competing with Disney for dominating the streaming environment and stuff.
Right. The issue is that it's going to be shot in the Amazon, and with Corona now and everybody not knowing what the future production is going to be like, I think it's best right now we're keeping it on ice till this passes over and we see what our possibilities are for the future.
You know, about 10, 12 years ago, I went to an event. It was an award show. You know, LA award shows, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And it was the Jules Verne Society providing awards to people who provoke exploration. So George Lucas got an award, Jim Cameron got an award, a couple other people. And Harrison Ford actually got an award because he was involved with a group dealing with the Amazon.
Oh, really?
Where they were buying beautiful orchids that only grew in the Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And shipping them to other places around the world with the intention of making the rainforest more valuable. It's through what grows there, what is there,
right,
than tearing it down.
Exactly.
So I don't know if Harrison Ford is still doing all that, but I thought that was a brilliant win-win all around. You preserve rainforest areas, people love them, and it's a growing kind of thing.
It really is. I mean, that's what I've been focusing on with working with endangered species, is that we have to face it. Economics makes the world go round. It's all about the money. So if you can make whether that species more profitable alive and thriving than it is clear cut, killed or destroyed or whatever, that's the win. So I love that direction. I have to look into that. I didn't know Harrison was doing that.
When the person who came up with the idea was introduced and thanked Harrison Ford for contributing to it, there's about 1,000 people in a big auditorium. It's got a standing ovation and stuff. Or Jane Goodall was also there too. So that was a fun night. But and I have no idea if they're still doing it, but I thought, like you, that was brilliant to make more valuable a living, existing ecosystem than tearing it down.
With the work that you did with NASA, I know I read about the International Space Station. Now, did you originally work with Space Shuttle?
I did some work on the Endeavour Space Shuttle. That was a replacement for the Challenger we lost. We spent a year or so looking at how to make the mid-deck, which is where they mostly live, that's below the pilot area, the sleeping area and stuff, more livable with sound control and lighting and a few other odds and ends and stuff. And then I did some stuff for Atlantis, which I still don't talk about because Atlantis was the Blue Shuttle, the Air Force shuttle. And that was looking, I can say this, that in the longer term duration stays in space and stuff. But the space shuttles are amazing vehicles. There's actually even a small level underneath the mid-deck that most people don't know about. And then there was a project called Space Hat, which I was involved in the origination of, that eventually got funded and went public and got built and flew 15 times in the cargo bay of the space shuttle.
Wow.
And that was a man-rated module that more than doubled the living working area on board a space shuttle.
That's awful.
And two of those modules together became Space Lab, where they would be able to go up and spend much more time and do far more science on a space shuttle mission. In fact, we lost two. There was three space halves made. There's one here in LA with the Endeavour space shuttle we have. And the two were lost when we lost Columbia, because that was a science mission and stuff.
Right.
But that was one of the first ever private enterprise developments from non-aerospace people, none of us are aerospace, that was man-rated and got funded and built and was pretty useful.
Explain to us the Space Tourism Society.
Sure. Well, in the early 80s, 1982, I realized that I was actually working at a design company, interior design company. And it was a confluence of things. We were actually doing the re-interiors of one of the Princess Cruise Line cruise ships, which is that cruise ships are very interesting design. The huge ones are floating cities. It's kind of amazing.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of ugly looking because they're in a big box. But by being on cruise ships and studying all this stuff and doing space stuff at the same time, I had one of those realizations that space tourism is going to be the big business off-world. And I've been modeling that industry after the cruise line industry since 1982. It's a very good industry model. I like to take Earth-based models, industries, and reformulate them for off-world development. And since the early 90s, I've been developing a concept of using space yachting based on ocean yachting, the big, beautiful super yachts, yachts.
Wow. I can see the connection where some of the concepts will kind of run parallel. What are some of the differences that don't run parallel? Say something that may work well for something here on an ocean, but isn't going to happen up in space.
No one's ever asked that question before. That's a very interesting question, but the fun part of design is you can always figure out a way of making it work.
Right.
And sometimes you simply change the rules a little bit and play your own game. But the difference between cruise line industry and the yachting industry, particularly super yachts, the big ones, is they're different financial models. In the cruise line industry, you're trying to make a good profit, a cash profit. The reason these super yachts exist and mega yachts is not cash profit. They're super expensive to design and build and really super expensive to operate. The profit and value is social profit.
Really?
Pride, prestige, social standing, branding, reward, all those kind of things are the motivation behind owning a super yacht.
Wow.
There's also issues for some people, it's more secure being on the ocean and stuff like that. And there, of course, there are assets, and they're financed just like you buy a house. You don't write $1 billion check. You finance it over 50 years.
Right.
Yeah. So my approach for developing the space yachting industry and community will work because the ultra wealthy corporations and families and individuals have a need to impress, the need to demonstrate their influence and power and wealth and prestige and all that kind of stuff. So my pitch down line is you can have the biggest mega yacht around, but someone's going to have a bigger one.
Right.
You can have more toys, helicopters, submarines, artwork, beautiful people, whatever. But someone's going to have more.
Right.
But you could be the Neil Armstrong of orbital super yachting by having the very first. To have a yachting community and industry, you have to have yacht clubs and designers and engineers and transportation and people who operate the yachts. So a lot of times people ask me, I want to go to space, but I don't have $50 million. What do I do? I say, work in space. That's really interesting because many times I've seen people, mostly young, change, brighten up, just like, whoa, that's a whole other life, other world. I could work in space. I could be a chef. I could be a captain of a yacht. I could do maintenance. I'll clean the toilets, the whole thing.
Right.
So it's understanding some of the economics of how the world works led me to deduce I could do the yachts, which are much smaller than space cruise ships, and I can get them funded because of the pride, prestige, and ego.
Right.
That means some of the richest people in the world get to go to space, have the overview experience, seeing Earth from space, and that uplifts our technology, capabilities, interests. When famous people start going to space, when there's the first honeymoon in space, all those kind of things. Space sports, skydiving from Earth orbit, dune buggy racing on the moon, all those things. That captures eyeballs, which means you get sponsorships, which means everything moves forward.
What's the backstory with NASA? I know for years they were very resistant to the space tourism. Finally, they're definitely coming around. Was it because of, if they don't do it, someone else will, like Russia, who was? Or what was kind of the backstory there that finally got them to come on board?
Time. In other words, you had the Apollo era people who continued working through space station, shuttle and all that. They retired. Some of them died off. So there's different generations of people running NASA. The current generation is younger, somewhat more broad-based smart and far more open to ideas and the commercialization of space. And in fact, they've had to become that way in order to work with SpaceX and eventually with Blue Origin and all those things. So it's things evolve, cultures evolve. The current NASA culture is the most vibrant and exciting since the Apollo, heart of the Apollo program. And they're just far more open to commercial development. And that's a great system of federal support and commercial support working together. And the reason SpaceX survived is it got contracts from NASA for delivering cargo and taking trash away, which is a big deal. So today's NASA is a much younger, vibrant, open-minded, cool NASA than 20 years ago, 40 years ago, that kind of stuff.
You think with that dynamic going on where the two are working hand in hand, that there won't be a few years down the road where really NASA becomes obsolete with all the privatized companies, or you think they'll stick hand in hand?
Yes, and like NASA just landed a $2.4 billion extraordinary rover on the moon. I'm sorry, on Mars.
On Mars, yeah, I saw some of the video, heard the wind and everything.
Yeah, that's what the federal government should do. Take the risk. I mean, the whole thing could have crashed, right? You junk piled $2.4 billion. Now they learned doing it and developed instruments and stuff, but the risk is spread across the U.S. government and the taxpayers to do those extraordinary, noble things. Now that's supported by private enterprise, which doesn't want to take that level of risk.
Right.
Most doesn't. So the paralleling of the federal program doing hardcore research and design and scientific work in parallel to commercial development worked great. I mean, the hybrid was the Russians, selling tickets to people to fly to the space station, right?
Right.
From Dennis Tito up till 2009 and stuff. The Russians were really the cowboys of space. I mean, they were really outrageous. And now there's just a renaissance of things happening with new companies, new ventures, more consumer oriented. Right now, there's a commercial running from Allstate Insurance of a lunar rover roving on the moon, very mellow music and going off the side of a cliff thing and just floating softly down to the surface.
Cool.
You really wouldn't do that because they could rotate. But and then a premiere commercial, and this is all prime time commercials. Just last week, one of these water flavor companies, I had never heard of water flavoring, did a commercial of some people on Mars, and Mars suits, Mars habitat, a little bit. And they have water, and they go, it's just water. And another spaceship lands and throws them the water flavoring. And they go, great. It's like, but they're using, and there's tons of commercials that use space and Mars. And now, of course, everything goes through cycles. We're a very high cycle of space interest right now. Then that will wane for a while. Cowboys will come up, who knows, whatever it is.
Right.
But our space tourism conference, which we started 2 years ago, because I was sensing space is coming back, space tourism. I knew what was happening at SpaceX and Blue Origin and all that stuff. It just made sense to put together a space tourism focused, very focused, which means not getting to space, but being there and having wonderful experiences. In other words, making the best possible experience for what you do with space tourism. Now we had, of course, cancel it. We were all set, big program, wonderful stuff, great support for last April. But, obviously you had to shut it down. So we're coming up with a virtual one this April coming up, April 28th and 29th.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, and then we're spreading it over 2 days from 10 in the morning till 2 each day. We literally lifted our program. We put together 6 different sessions and split it up into 2 different days. In 2022, we're pretty confident we can have an in-person conference, the Space Tourism Conference, for 500 plus people. And we always do our big events at one of the big hotels down by next to LAX. We've been doing that for 25 years or so. So that should actually work out pretty well and continue to stimulate the investment in and development of and diversity of the space experience. Now, the wild card for us is if we pull off financing Mars World. So Mars World is a $2 billion large-scale mixed-use real estate project.
Wow.
It's a big project. Did I send you any information on that?
No, but please do. I definitely
Yeah,
want to check it out.
I'll send you some. And there's something when you first connected me, I went, aha, I got to talk to this guy.
Hmm.
Because the concept behind Mars World is it's the city of the future on Mars. It's all inside a giant dome. So it's a totally indoor, what we call experience park. That's the next generation of what's called location-based entertainment.
Hmm.
So it's much more profitable. You run it year-round all the time. There's a resort in the very center. And architecturally, the concept is that we've built this city of the future on Mars in the rim of an impact crater, because that's a round structure.
Right.
That works out nicely with the dome, which is round.
Yeah.
And round circulations are very good for theme parks because you start in one place, go around the whole thing, and you come back to where you. Disneyland's actually a round circulation, which most people have no clue about.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, the castle's almost in the center, but you either go this way around it or you go this
Right.
way.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So at Mars World, part of this is it's all called world building. We're creating a world. We're inventing a world. And that's what's happened when you have like Star Wars or a Star Trek or a Harry Potter, is the people imagine a world and every detail of that world. Avatar, Cameron did a ton of work with the anthropology and the whole bit.
Sure.
And you create a culture, a place, a time, a backstory, all of those things. What I want to talk with you over time is you're an explorer. Our 100 people who started the Mars World City, the city founders, are both explorers and settlers. So what is that whole essence of exploring? And I'm modeling and building the Martian culture, which get down into the intimate details, the music, the food, some language, everything, the art, modeling it after the Burning Man event.
Very cool.
You're familiar with the Burning Man?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So
Never
that's
went,
really
but
yeah, I haven't gone either. I spent a lot of time in the desert. It's an art culture. And in our backstory, the Martians are incredibly vibrant, great people, characters, and they love art in all forms and create art on Mars that they export to Earth as part of the economy.
wow.
So Martian artwork, music, video, fashion, Martian wine is really, really sought after. And that's whole part of the whole thing.
That's brilliant.
So we need to create a Martian culture.
Right.
But at the heart of it, they're explorers. Turns out Mars is a great place to explore the outer solar system because you've got a planet with a lot less gravity, basically hardly any atmosphere, and you're right next door to the asteroid belt.
Right.
And then much closer to the gas giants, which have all the big moons. Europa and some of these guys have underwater, under the ice oceans. The probability of life in those areas is really, really high.
Yeah. Do you ever think that we'll find life in our solar system?
Yeah. Well, Europa, if you had to make a bet, you can make a pretty good bet that there is life on Europa, also Titan. There's actually 6 off-world oceans.
Really?
Yeah. There are these big moons that have ice over them because they're so far away from the sun. But because of gravitational stuff moving forward, which creates a lot of heat and energy, there's water, liquid water. Wow. Yeah. And of course, the ice protects any life that might start. Now, there might not be any, who knows? Right. But if the chances of the potential is very high, and the ice and water is a great radiation protecting. So that's actually pretty cool too. So it turns out that the Martian space program would really kind of kick the butt of the Earth space program.
Yeah, that's incredible stuff. Now back to your orbital super yacht there.
Yeah.
For instance, would there be some type of docking system, or that it would need to connect to, as well as how would you get people up to it?
The way we assembled the International Space Station was the shuttle bringing up modules and pieces of equipment and all assembling it in Earth orbit. We would do the same thing with orbital super yachts, yacht clubs, but rather than shuttles, there'd be SpaceX or Blue Origin or some other group sending up packages that go into orbit or brought to a certain place, and an assembly crew unpacks them and connects them together to create the orbital super yachts, the yacht clubs, all of those types of infrastructure. And then the people would come and go, crew members, passengers, with space vehicles, which we assume over the next 20 years become more sophisticated, less expensive, and all of those kind of things. And then the yacht just operates in Earth's orbit for its full life cycle, then eventually is unassembled or made to crash into the Earth's atmosphere. But there's also racing yachts that go around the Earth and then break away and go around the moon. Real close to the surface, so you sense a speed.
Wow.
So it's basically the America's Cup around the moon.
That puts the X Games to shame, because I think few people truly realize that that thin veneer of life and death you're in when you're in space.
Right.
And even if you have a fender bender, it's over.
Yeah, that's pretty. You have to be pretty good at space stuff, because bad stuff can happen real fast. But that's all part of the ethos of the whole thing. That climb out, you actually have a far better chance of dying climbing Mount Everest.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Far better than you do in space. Actually, no one's ever died in space. We've lost astronauts going to and coming back,
but not
astronauts returning, or the fire with the Apollo command module. But no one's actually died in space.
Wow. I never even realized that. That's interesting.
Now, there will be, as more people go, more things will happen, but that's part of the whole, again, ethos of moving outward and trying unique things.
Oh, definitely part of the process.
And when I designed the orbital super yacht, the real one, I wanted to make a beautiful spaceship. So I actually designed a beautiful spaceship. And people think it's a beautiful spaceship. And like I said, when we're developing the Mars world, Martian culture, talking with you about someone who's done all these expeditions and been out there and suffered through all the hardships of being in these remote, tough places, dangerous places, I want to talk with you a lot about that, because our founders of the city will face some real challenges.
Sure. Oh, I'd be honored. I'm here.
Yeah, good. We'll do that.
As you mentioned earlier, with the issue of space junk, it could be totally false, but someone once said that if one satellite crashed into another, it could create a chain reaction that could actually limit our space travel. Now, no one important told me this, so I don't even know if it's true, but I know the space junk is an issue, and probably with more traveling we do, will become more. What's being designed for keeping the environment clean there?
Some companies are being formed to actually collect up space junk and get it on little modules and send them down to burn up in the Earth's atmosphere. Space Command and European stuff track about 50,000 objects, some as small as a marble, that are space junk in space. The Chinese blew up a satellite, which pissed off everybody about 6 or 7 years ago, and created thousands of pieces of space junk.
Oh, really?
And because of the how fast things move, 17,000, 18,000 miles an hour, something real small has a huge amount of kinetic energy that could take out a tank. That's how you kill tanks, with these darts that move so fast that they, hit the tank and cause the interior to explode and stuff.
Right.
All kinetic energy. So space junk is a real problem. Now, one of the advantages of my yacht approach is it's all inflatable structures connected together. So the way this would be designed, there's multiple layers of fabric and other materials, Kevlar and stuff in these materials, so that if a space object hit it, most likely it would go right through one side and right out the other side. And
that's nice.
Yeah, well, rather than, hopefully it doesn't hit anybody or a lot of equipment, but then the hull seals itself, and it can be plugged up even stronger. If one of those objects hit the space station, these are aluminum modules, it'd be like in big explosion kind of stuff and bad stuff. So that's why they particularly track stuff around the space station. And half a dozen times a year, they actually have to slightly move the space station with thrusters to get out of the way of something. But something could hit the space station, and that would be a bad day. Yeah, but that's part of the whole, thing, that basically you're out there in a unique, extreme environment, and you have to be prepared for it.
Yeah.
Space station just celebrated 20 years of operation. 20 years.
That's amazing. The time flies.
Yeah, time flies. Yeah, time flies. But bad stuff will happen. That's just normal. You try to avoid it. But when it happens, you just you study it so it doesn't happen again. You keep moving on.
Now, I'll tell you a neat story. I was in the Peruvian Amazon, and I was out catching a bushmaster, which is a giant 9-foot viper, one of the most deadly in the world. And they're not around villages because as soon as the villagers see it, they kill it. So I had to go real deep in virgin rainforest. And I remember sitting on top of this rather high hill at night, and with 4 natives. And this is a place where typically even airplanes you don't see flying over. It's that deep in. And next thing you know, they keep telling me, they yell and they point to the air and they look, and I'm like, what the? And coming straight across was the International Space Station.
Oh, that's
and yeah, and in the middle of the Amazon, and it seemed so big, and with the humidity in the air, really shined.
wow.
And it was incredible to tell the natives, explain to them that, hey, there's actually people there right now, and explain the whole process. So not only that, it's wonderful now speaking to you afterwards.
Yeah,
But
that's great.
yeah, it's incredible. But now with the privatization of everything here, from the future on, the kind of the competition or the space races that we may be developing, is this going to be like the old days by competing countries or corporations?
The likelihood is that there's going to be 2 major competitive forces evolving fairly rapidly for space.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be China and kind of like everybody else.
Okay.
And China does have a very progressive, and they're doing a pretty good job in developing their space programs, their space station project. They just had a satellite go orbiting Mars, first time for China. There was 3 vehicles heading to Mars, but now have all arrived.
Mm-hmm.
And China has a lander on their vehicle that's going to try to land. So you're going to have countries connecting together, almost like a NATO of space, supported by corporations, and then China. Now, China may be able to form some alliances too, but they tend to be not doing that as much and stuff. So you're going to have these 2 forces. And the reason Space Force was started, and that's an evolution out of stuff that's been going on for a long time, is to monitor and counter China.
Okay.
We don't want China, and we will not allow China to, and use force if necessary, to claim the moon. Ain't going to happen. So the moon's going to be treated in the early days more like Antarctica. I mean, you can go to Antarctica and you can do all kinds of scientific and tourism and all kinds of stuff, but you can't own any part of Antarctica. It's kind of a world resource place and stuff.
Right.
We're thinking the moon will have certainly more commercial development, but nobody can own the moon. Now you can claim territories or claim stuff, and there's huge valuable things there, particularly ice in crater rims. That is once you have ice, you have water,
right,
and you have air, and you have fuel, and you have water, and it's a great resource. So the way we learned a lot from what happened with the United States, of people coming to the country and then spreading across from the East Coast mostly to the West Coast. So of course, there was a lot of people coming from East to West too, to settle California and all those things. The big important difference is there's nobody to conquer. There's no indigenous people in space. So disease and conquering and other stuff like that is not going to happen by taking down people. There'll be the real challenge is man versus nature. And eventually, in some cases, probably man versus man type thing. But we don't have to conquer anybody. And one of the great opportunities of going to space is it's a collective effort. For example, the space station, there are 16 countries involved in the space station. The US and Russia are the main players, say the anchor tenants and stuff. Then you have all these other stuff. If you think of like a mall in space, Japan, France, Canada, Germany, all these countries have either modules or experimental things going on, and there's lots of visitors from different countries, Vietnam, other places, who they themselves don't have a space program. But by collaborating with the International Space Station, some of their people get to go there. The first woman Korean went a couple of years ago, for example, scientist. So the opportunity to collaborate between governments and between government and private enterprise is great. For example, on Space Station, Bigelow Aerospace, good friend of ours, has an inflatable module on board connected to the space station. And I was the one 20 years ago almost that got him involved in inflatable space architecture. So that was pretty cool that they had that module there. And Bob has two independent modules in Earth's orbit. One's been up there 12 years, one 10 years. It's all inflatable with a hard center and inflatable exterior. He's been doing really important testing of materials, long duration testing of materials in space, and measuring radiation and measuring leakage and measuring all kinds of odds and ends.
When do you think we'll have a permanent station on the moon?
Oh, within 20 years. I mean, a manned station, you know, but definitely within 20 years. And part of that is twofold. One, Jeff Bezos, who trades positions with Elon as being the richest person in the world. The two richest guys on the planet both have rocket companies.
Yeah. Isn't it great that they're all both techies?
Yeah. And it's all designed for humans moving outward into space. When you tell business guys, well, the two richest guys in the world have rocket companies and they want to go out in outer space, the business community goes, oh shit, I should probably pay more attention to this type of thing. Now they became rich doing Earth-based stuff. And although SpaceX is very valuable too. So Bezos' life goal has been to set up a resort on the moon, a base dash resort on the moon. And from high school, he was saying stuff like that. So that's why he wanted to become rich, to be able to develop the infrastructure to then be able to do that. So Bezos is really into space infrastructure, which then allows new ideas and new groups and new people to utilize that infrastructure to develop their space ventures. In the same way, he was able to use the existing infrastructure when he formed Amazon, of freeways and Federal Express and computer systems and the post office, which had been developed, a lot of it, through federal funding. And then he was able to use that to build a successful business. So his philosophy is to be the infrastructure developer for space, so all these different kinds of businesses can evolve.
Now, where do you think that space tourism itself is going to be in, say, 20 years from now, but as well as in 50 years from now?
In 20 years, I'm hoping to have orbital super yacht in orbit. 50 years from now, a whole yachting and program going on with numerous yachts and yacht clubs, just like we have in the but the cruise lines having cruise ships, orbital cruise ships and lunar cruise ships, and some of them going to luxury resorts on the moon.
That's great. What about landing on Mars? When do you think we'll be able to accomplish that?
Probably 20, 25 years. It's really hard, but there's a game changer in the works, which is that there's some really success happening in developing nuclear powered rocket systems, which would be other systems which allow you to get people, so you have a lot of mass, from Earth to Mars within, say, 30 days, rather than 9 months. So within a decade, we should be able to go to Mars and return much, much, much faster. So that means we can stay longer on Mars, but then come back. So that, in the same way ocean things happen, you had the sailing ships that took 6 months to get somewhere. Then you had steamships that took, a month. Then you had cruise ships that you can go back and forth, a week. So it's the same evolutionary process where the technologies allow you to do more things faster and commercialize it.
It's mind-blowing. As a child, I'd watched the Jetsons, and that just blew my mind. Did you ever get inspiration from the Jetsons?
I was more influenced by Star Trek and the real space program and stuff.
Yeah.
Like you said, I was 13 when Apollo 11 landed. So I was pretty aware and had been tracking it since the beginning of the Mercury program and all that. So now I was so lucky to be born when 13 when Apollo landed, Star Trek, the original ones, 2001. When I saw 2001, it blew my mind that, like, who designs all this stuff? That's so
Yeah.
interesting.
I heard about a game show that the winner gets to go to the International Space Station.
Yeah, we just did a webinar with them last Thursday. Space Hero, and they're putting together a worldwide casting show to get 24 contestants from around the world to compete, kind of like a Survivor thing, with the final 3 people training because you always want backup people, and
Sure.
they're going to pay $55 million. It's already they're working it out with Axiom Space and SpaceX. By the way, Axiom Space just booked last month 3 people to fly to the space station, plus an astronaut pilot, and each of those 3 guys is paying $55 million to spend 10 days on board the space station. So Space Hero they still have to raise some money, but they got production deals and all kinds of stuff going on.
Right.
We got a detailed briefing on. They're friends of ours too. We know these guys, and they're going to be at our conference and all kinds of stuff. So and they're probably going to launch the show from here in Los Angeles, and I may arrange for them to do that at the California Science Center that has a pavilion with the Endeavour space shuttle in it.
Oh, nice.
So you could actually have this whole show with the real shuttle behind you.
Yeah.
Making all these announcements and stuff.
Oh, that's the location then.
But they're real, and they have a lot of production background, a lot of growing support. Tom Cruise had been pitching the idea of filming a segment for the Mission Impossible thing.
I heard about that.
But I'm not sure if that's still going to happen or not. But Tom Cruise and the director would actually fly up on a SpaceX rocket and spend time on the space station. They'd film a segment for the next Mission Impossible.
Wow.
The Russians are trying to beat them to do that. So we have a little bit of movie space race going on.
Oh, really?
Film, yeah. One of the big lady stars in Russia wants to go to the space station and film something up there like that, a romance thing or something. And, they might be competing. Who's the first movie shot in space type thing.
Oh, Tom Cruise doesn't like to lose either.
Yeah, he doesn't like to lose.
He's going to fight for that one.
Yeah. So that's actually pretty fun to watch too.
I bet.
But things that were fantasy 10 years ago, certainly 20 years ago, have happened or are going to happen. And the infrastructure and the rationale and just the social acceptance of these things happening and then being exciting and motivating. I mean, when Perseverance made it, there was huge media coverage, particularly here in Los Angeles, that they made it, yay, a positive, healthy thing.
And that's where pop culture comes in, between the movies and the books, to get people pumped up for things like this.
There's a lot of musicians working on space music and all kinds of stuff. A friend of mine just came out with a book called Alcohol in Space. It's a whole book on the history of alcohol in space, including real space, but also movies. And I remember the cantina scene from Star Wars.
Right. That's a great idea.
Yeah, he wrote the whole book. And 10 Forward, which was Star Trek Next Generation, was a permanent 7-year set on Paramount Studios, for the series. And it was actually a real bar with refrigerators and running water. And because we used to have some events on that. And the executives always like to take their families and perspective other people to 10 Forward to Star Trek stuff for dinner or a bar thing or whatever. So it's tons of bar stuff. Even in one of the first Star Wars, of the last 3 Star Wars, they actually had all these scenes in a big giant space bar.
Oh, that's great. Listen, John, I know you're very busy. I'd like to thank you so much for your time. Just one more question is that, as a futurist, what is in the future for John Spencer?
Well, keep doing what I'm doing. And if we get really rich on Mars world, we're simply going to be able to do what we do better.
Fantastic.
So my goal is to keep pushing things forward, keep pushing ideas, and keep focused on the quality of the space experience. That's our whole core goal.
Well, perfect. Well, thanks so much, John. You are definitely a Da Vinci. And let's keep in touch. I love to help out with Mars World. And
great. I'll be sending you some stuff over the next couple of days, and we will stay in good touch.
Sounds good.
All right, Rusty, and thank you for the
sir.
work you do too. I mean, you're an explorer and pioneer and doing good stuff for the Amazon. That's really critical. So appreciate what you do.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
Okay. See you later.
Have a great weekend, John. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.